I wonder how the mountain felt the silence, the shock of nature cut from its routine. How do they swallow this darkness up there, this lack of sleep? Does the rain, too, fill buckets of common pleas? Does it leave us all thirsty to hear a coqui?
You start to try to wander out, second day, no electricity, no water, and then you started walking around your neighborhood and you saw half of the house gone. No roof, or you could see the kitchen, you could see the toilet from the street, and you're like, oh my God, this is major.
This was my first hurricane, and it was a frightening experience. It was a long, 12 hours in a closet with my son and my husband, not knowing what was gonna happen.
So after 3 weeks, we started cooking because we saw that there was no food and there was an absence of government. So we started cooking each day for 350 people. We start organizing all these ladies that are over there that they know how to cook for a lot of people. We start getting resources for that.
And I'm still here, but like I said, I was in a super depression, and you think about, why are you here? It's all your work to this point has been in vain, and you just want to give up. And I'm saying give up as in leaving this earth. And I was like, no, lady, you don't believe in that. No. You have such blessings. You have people who love you. You love so many people. Oh my God, why would you even think that it's better not to be alive?
Then it was mostly a daily reaching out to see from the U.S. people who would know, because there was no contact. There was no way to contact anybody. So I get reports. People did all kinds of, as you know, all kinds of crazy things to get electricity. And so finding out from people if their relatives had gotten electricity to then know how your relatives were, and vice versa. I mean, you would try to help other people as well.
I sort of didn't want people to ask me because it would make me so sad. Just because I didn't know, and so people are like, oh, how's your family? And all you can say is, I have no idea. And so it was hard. I don't think it was as hard as what they've been through, but I think certainly for me it was probably one of the toughest 2 weeks emotionally that I've been through. And then once I finally got to talk to them, it was I don't think I'd ever felt more grateful to have my parents in my life.
Whenever I was alone, I would cry constantly. It was and then of course I was really good that as soon as someone showed up, I needed to be that happy face for them. And tell them that everything's okay and you're all right, no problem. But as soon as I turned around, the reality was there, and we hadn't had a moment to not a break. They haven't given us a break. There was not a break when we had no electricity. That was survival of the fittest. And the lights come back on, you go back to work, but you're we didn't have a break. And then the demands back to back. It's we're only human.
After coming out of after the hurricane was over, and stepping outside and observing the devastation, that was very hard, very difficult. But once the pathway was cleared, we just got up and kept going.
Where we find ourselves today hasn't happened organically, naturally. The bankruptcy, the debt didn't just arise out of some vacuum because the people of Puerto Rico are incapable or don't know how to manage economies or finance it, right? The U.S. had a pretty clear hand in how we got here today. Here's the story of Puerto Rico as I understand it, as I know it, as it's told. This is the late 19th century. Puerto Rico's subject to colonial Spain. They're subjects of the crown. They begin to push back. Cuba begins it. And by 98, as you know, the Spanish-American War, some accounts suggest, and I think they're accurate, that the fight was almost won by that moment. Spain was, in fact, making concessions, both in Cuba and Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico had gained autonomies that it did not have under the crown prior to that moment. This is 1898. Well, the U.S. becomes involved. Once that happens, they free Cuba. There's a reason for that. Puerto Rico suffered a different fate.
After the Spanish-American War, the United States expanded downward into the Caribbean, annexing Puerto Rico from Spain in 1898. It was a strategic gain for the United States, but Puerto Rico wasn't just a lone island. It came full of residents, wondering, what happens now? As it turns out, that's the exact question the United States was asking too.
Point is, from that moment forward, the question was, what do we do with this Puerto Rico? Strategically, it makes sense. It's property, the island itself, it made sense for the U.S. interest to own it, and I do mean own it. 1917. So the question is, what are they? What are the people of Puerto Rico? And we'll do with them what we want. This is the Treaty of Paris. By 1917, and finally the U.S. says the first Jones Act that conferred citizenship on the people of Puerto Rico. Again, what does that mean? And that's a question we're debating to this day. It doesn't mean, I guarantee it, what you think it means.
In less than 20 years, Puerto Ricans had been annexed by the United States and granted citizenship. But there is one more piece of critical legislature of this time, and you simply cannot talk about the history of Puerto Rico without talking about the Jones Act of 1920.
So the Jones Act is basically a law that controls the it's a maritime law, and a lot of it has to do with the taxes that get paid for trade and trading overseas and using ports at different United States ports. So technically Puerto Rico, because it belongs to the United States in many ways, the Jones Act controls not only what comes in and out through the Puerto Rican ports, but also how much it costs. Products that come through Puerto Rico can only come on American boats, and so it's very expensive to go through Puerto Rico. It affects which countries can afford to do it, it affects which products, and it affects the cost of products on the island. And it's an archaic law that really only benefits the United States government. And because of Hurricane Maria, it all sort of came back to life, and the whole legal discussion around why this law exists, whether it should exist at all.
After Hurricane Maria, the president placed a temporary suspension on the Jones Act for 10 days to allow the island to receive direct aid from outsiders without the need for those ships to pass through U.S. ports.
1920, the Jones Act, and this came up during Maria. If you remember, after Maria, Trump put on hold the dictates of the Jones Act for 10 days to allow goods to come into the island, but only 10 days, right? This doesn't seem to make sense to most of us, because essentially Puerto Rico is not independent, it's not sovereign. That's what it means to be a territory. So that merchant marines, right, the idea that ships coming to Puerto Rico have to touch a port in the U.S. before coming. So the Dominican Republic, think any country in the Caribbean, think South America, countries wishing to help Puerto Rico could not do so until those goods coming to Puerto Rico first touched a port in the United States, and those goods were transferred from the foreign ship onto a U.S. ship, a U.S. flagged ship.
To this day, the Jones Act still majorly affects Puerto Rico and its economy, to the extent that some recently conducted studies have shown that if the Jones Act did not exist, neither would the public debt of the island. It's hard for most of us to even comprehend exactly how big a $73 billion debt is. And for reference, that kind of debt is equal to the net worth of 81 Beyoncé and Jay-Z's, 73 franchises of the New Orleans Pelicans, or 164 of the newest Airbus aircrafts. That's a lot of cash.
It's very serious. It's compared to countries I deal with, like it's it's in huge debt, and it's a debt that I think is going to be very difficult to repay. And I don't think that's any different after Hurricane Maria. Like, I think it was a debt difficult to repay before. There's like a whole bankruptcy discussion and a whole legal discussion around Puerto Rico not being a state and not having the same avenues as some states or municipalities have when it comes to filing for bankruptcy. And it also doesn't have the same avenues as an independent country.
Why is Puerto Rico different from any other state or municipality? Why is Puerto Rico different? Why can't they avail themselves from the benefits of bankruptcy law and the bankruptcy code? Well, you may be surprised to know, maybe not. They could avail themselves of the bankruptcy code some years ago. And Puerto Rico had been included in the bankruptcy code, then it was dropped. And nobody knows why. There's no legislative history. So now here's Puerto Rico, a colonial territory that is in grave debt, yet they can't get out of it.
You might be thinking, how did a $73 billion debt build up so quickly? Well, the truth of the matter is, it's been building for a long, long time.
To your last point on the 936, the 936, this is done in order to bolster the Puerto Rican economy. You have tax breaks to companies that come and set up shop in Puerto Rico. You had a company invested in Puerto Rico, not just one, lots of them, and they were encouraged to do so, to come to Puerto Rico. Well, Clinton in 1996 gave it, I believe, 10 years, which basically wound it down. So then once that ends, you can see how then the Puerto Rican economy begins to dip. And it's been dipping in a way that is yet to recover. So they begin to make up the difference by borrowing. And because there's no other way. And they did everything they could, but they did what they knew how under the circumstances. And of course, it became a death spiral.
All of these factors were major contributors to the current state of Puerto Rico's economy. But there was one final blow that sent the island to its knees, and that was Hurricane Maria.
Maria made clear that when things happen in Puerto Rico, we get paper towels thrown at us. That's what we get. Or so says, or did, President Trump. But that video made sense to me. That's the history of Puerto Rico in 5 seconds. Operation 936, that is the bankruptcy, that is the Jones Act. It's the paper towels. Here, take this. Because that's what we want to give you. But I'm hungry. Paper towels, use that.
This reality is one that the people of the island know all too well. For local business owners, their troubles were heightened by not only the need to survive in the immediate aftermath of the storm, but the need to keep their businesses running to sustain themselves and their families.
Like the straw that broke the camel's back, except that the straw is not on the camel's back yet. And then Maria is like, ding, and collapsed.
This is Lady Lee Andrews, an accomplished Puerto Rican poet who owns the Poet's Passage in Old San Juan.
How has the instability of that economy affected your business?
It's affected it so much that every day is a risk. Every day we have bills to pay and we haven't caught up. So you have that in the back of your mind that you have faith that with hard work and keep the doors open and people will come. And it's not as promising yet. I gotta keep those positive out there yet. Has it affected us? Of course it has affected us. As soon as the lights came on, the government and the banks acted as if nothing ever happened. People are already injured and they're adding to it instead of just giving a breather. No one is saying we don't want to work. No one is saying I'm not going to do it. But give us a break to get back on our feet. And that's not something that's happening right now.
The Poets Passage employs local artists and poets from the San Juan area, and is probably best known for their lively, soulful, and charming poetry nights they host every Tuesday. After Maria, Lady and the artists at Poets kept their poetry nights going, even in the dark.
I was missing all the poets, because I think we didn't do it for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And I was like, no, we need to meet. And then I tried a couple of times, and poets actually came. And having them come at night is risking their lives because there's no lights. But they made it because they needed to tell us, they needed to speak, they needed to tell everyone what they were going through. And it helped us all. Every poet who read something about whatever the experience was at the moment, we all needed to hear it because we're like, yes, that's exactly it. And it was great. We'd fill up the hallway with flashlights and candles and things that I would give away at the end of the night. You could walk away with it.
But Hurricane Maria and the economic crisis hasn't just affected small business on the island. Healthcare providers are feeling the effects more than ever. We headed to Vega Baja to catch up with Dr. Portela Valles, a local dentist who owns and operates his own dental office.
I was worried about my business. What happened to my office? It's the source of income for my family and the people that work for me, because I worry about my family, but I have 3 other families I have to support. I didn't have a job. I was still trying to fulfill my role as a patron, as an employer. When I'm really just a doctor with a dental clinic. Sometimes I felt hopeless because I have friends that work for pharmaceuticals, they had planes flown in with power plants for their employees. They put up tents with places so that women, they would go there and wash their clothes. They would give them water. They would give them ice. Nobody gave me any of that. I called government agencies to see if I qualified for anything. Just small business loans. I'm like, really? At this age, I'm going to take more loans. I'll deal with what I have.
In the town of Humacao, one of the hardest hit parts of the island, we met with some of the leaders for 2 community-based organizations, Peces of Punto Santiago and the Community Center of Barrio Mariana.
My name is Alexandra Arroyo. I work for the Community Sustainability Center. I'm the general coordinator.
I'm Luis Rodriguez Sanchez. I'm a composer, and now I'm co-directing the organization Aregma.
Throughout the island, community-based organizations have risen up left and right, with the goal of serving their communities and assisting in the recovery efforts after Maria.
Working here, working with the distribution of provisions, water, necessities like generators, refrigerators, stoves, everything that anybody could need. We've been giving workshops, psychological counseling workshops, creating a family plan for emergencies and different workshops of that nature.
We were told by Mr. Felix that you were working with several different organizations, have been giving money to Peces. Is that true?
Yeah, we're working with Global Giving. I'm not going to remember them all. It's a lot. There are a lot of foundations. We're working with Global Giving, Hispanic Federation Foundation for Puerto Rico. We're working with Unidos con Puerto Rico. Mercy Corps. There are a lot.
I left, I studied, worked, I came back. I was teaching in the University of Puerto Rico as a professor, and I was just 1 year because the pay was so bad. So I said, well, my talent, I'm gonna use it in my community because I love to teach, I love to work, I love to compose. So I'm gonna do that, not in the academy. And I came where I grew up to do that. It's an organization that's been here for 35 years. It's a community building organization.
What types of things do you do for the community?
We kind of accompany people in their process of liberation through mutual aid. Each project, we see it as a strategy of that people get more responsibilities and can have in what they love to do. If it's, we have a project of agriculture, project of the kitchen. We're doing laundry, so we can wash our clothes because we don't have electricity. We're building an amphitheater. We have a park for the kids.
Yeah.
So we have now a summer camp is coming, and we do a festival that has been 31 years.
Yeah.
A breadfruit festival. Plenty of things. It's not about money, but the people of the community can come here, buy the food, or work for it. So they have a space where you can. If you don't have money, that's not a problem. You can eat. What is wrong about the hurricane is not the hurricane itself. It's a man-made situation, like Katrina.
Go check out New Orleans after Katrina on the public school system. Once you privatize, right, the one argument is, well, it becomes more efficient, right? The market will solve all problems. I'll say this, I am not buying what they're selling. And Puerto Rico's become a playground for the rich to just make money. We're talking about people's lives.
We are living a situation that before Maria, we were having so many problems. We have a 72 billion debt that we actually, I don't know where that money went. Nobody knows. So it was kind of a created debt. People from the fiscal board that were appointed by Obama, kind of is like a dictatorship here, because the people doesn't vote for it, but they take the tough decisions. They take the decisions actually and tell the government to implement. It's like we are a colony of the U.S. They invite us in 1898. They took us, and they tried to change the language. They tried to change the culture. They have changed the agricultural that we were to industries like pharmaceuticals, putting laws for the pharmaceutical companies to have exemptions. Kind of what we were, right? It was broken at some point.
Here we are, 1 year after Hurricane Maria, and mainland Americans are just now catching a glimpse of the problems and struggles Puerto Rico has been facing for years. But the people have shown us that they will rise, that they will work hard, and that they will love harder, and that they will always be there for each other. And most importantly, that they are not going anywhere.
I would just hope that this would teach us all to work together as a community, to not let any situation or any event take you down.
This is my home. This is where I was born, my business, my kids, my parents are here, my wife, family, all my family's here.
And you could speak. You could come here and be, and have a breath, and you go back out there and you're a little stronger. So that's why I fight for the Poet's Passage. And I will until the day I die.
Understanding what it is. I think the most revolutionary thing that you can do is tap into happiness. It's a contrast, what the laws and the government is doing, plus what the communities are doing. They're reinventing themselves, taking care of their own land, taking care of their own people. That's what we saw in post Maria. What we have to do.